Hey guys, this is Alan, and today's episode I'm going to show you how to plant and grow a loquat tree. Now let's talk about planting the tree in the ground. The first thing you need to understand is, well, location. What do loquats need? If you live in an area where the temperatures are mild, I'm talking about 90, maybe 95 degrees in the summer, and you have a lot of humidity in your area, loquat trees will take full sun. Now, if you live in Arizona, like I do, and in the summer we get extreme temperatures, I'm talking about 110, 120 degrees, no clouds in the sky, no humidity, the main killer of loquats here in Arizona, it's going to be the sun. Now, you need to understand something. When picking a spot to plant your loquat trees need, I would say, 90-100% shade for the first summer. This is only for the first summer, or maybe some trees may need it for 2 summers. But after that, once your tree actually grows roots in the soil, it will actually take the sun. This is not permanent. So do not plant your loquat in an area that's going to be permanently shaded. Your loquat will not grow as well as if they actually get sun eventually. There are different types of loquats. You're going to have the ones you grow from seedlings. Those guys, what I've seen personally, they can take the sun, they can take everything. They're a lot easier, they're a lot stronger to grow in any area. The problem with seedlings though is it takes them a lot longer to fruit, and you just don't know what the fruit may taste like. But you know what? If you want a tree that's gonna grow vigorously, go ahead and get a seedling and put it in the ground, if fruit is not a priority for you. Now, if you're gonna get a named variety, there are many different varieties out there. The one behind me, this is a 45-gallon Christmas loquat. Now, in my experience, the grafted varieties in our area, they're usually not that strong. So what you need to do is, anywhere you're gonna pick a spot, you have to understand that it will need shade for at least 1 to 2 summers. Why that long? Because loquat trees are slow growing plants. They don't grow the fastest, and it takes them that long to fully establish themselves in the soil. Once their roots are fully developed, the tree becomes stronger and it will actually be able to tolerate the sunlight. Loquat trees are extremely sunlight sensitive in our area, especially if the temperatures get above 100 degrees with no humidity in the air. I have killed a lot of loquats, and it took me a long time to realize this, guys. So, you know, I'm sharing the knowledge with you so that you don't make the same mistakes I did. A lot of people assume underneath the canopy of a bigger tree, it's gonna be, you know, good enough shade. And that may be, but you have to understand that the sun will move throughout the day, and it will also move throughout the seasons. So if a little bit of sunlight comes through the canopy of that tree during the summer when the temperatures are over 100 degrees, just a few hours, all it takes to destroy your loquat tree, regardless on how much you water it. So be mindful, especially when you plant, if you want to plant a loquat tree in the ground, you're going to provide some shade. You have to provide some shade for the first summer or 2, or you may risk your loquat dying. Now, you may hear other people say, loquats, you know, my loquat, I put it in the ground and it's taking full sun all day long, no issues. Don't listen to that person, and then you'll be okay. But then if your tree dies, guys, you know, the only person you can blame is yourself, because I told you so. If you live in an area where your temperatures in the summer get over 100 degrees, no humidity in the air, no clouds in the sky to give your plant breaks throughout the day, you're going to need to provide shade to your loquat. There are many different varieties of loquats out there, and then there are some varieties that I've personally seen take more sun than others. Big Jim, Gold Nugget, I've seen those varieties take full sun all day, but I've also seen Big Jim and Gold Nugget loquats die in a few hours from being exposed to the sunlight the first summer. So don't rely on what other people tell you. The loquats took full sun, you know, no shade, and then don't worry about it, guys. If you want your loquat to live, I highly encourage you to shade it. I'm talking about 90 to 100% shade all the way around the tree and on the top. Even if you try to plant your loquat underneath a canopy of a bigger tree like I'm doing today, you're still gonna have to shade it just to be safe. But yeah, when picking a location, guys, just pick an area where you know your sun will eventually get sun, especially in the morning. Morning sun is more beneficial to your plants than afternoon sun. Um, I've read somewhere, don't quote me, where 1 hour of sunlight has as much energy as about 4 hours of afternoon sunlight. So that is the main reason why you want your plants to be exposed to the sunlight in the morning than in the afternoon, because of the energy factor. But anyways, yes, your local will take full sun eventually once it's fully grown and fully, fully developed root system in the ground. That takes a few years. So, location, guys. Let's get back to it before I forget. Pick an area where it's gonna get sun eventually, but be mindful you're gonna have to shade it. And that's about it. That's another thing with any plant that you put in the ground. When's the best time to actually plant it? For loquats, to be honest, it's gonna be any time of the year except in the middle of the summer here in Arizona, because the temperatures are extremely hot, and if you make any mistakes, guys, your loquat's dead. At least any other time of the year, if you make any mistakes, your plant's not gonna die immediately. During the middle of summer, when the temperatures are over 100 degrees every single day, you forgot to shade one area, you forget to water, guess what? You just lost your loquat. You can plant it as long as you make sure to take care of it. But if you want to minimize any risks, then I recommend not to plant it in the middle of the summer. You can plant it in the winter time because loquats, they can take a lot of cold, guys. I've seen loquats take down into the lower teens without any damage. Now, obviously, the fruit ripens through the winter, so if you're in an area where it gets that cold, you're probably not gonna get any fruits. Your fruit's not gonna be tolerate, temperatures that cold. But yeah, your tree will be able to make it. Now, this Christmas loquat right here is one of the shorter varieties. So usually fully grown, I'm expecting maybe here in Arizona, once it's 100% grown, 10 years from now, maybe 12 feet tall. So I'm putting it right here. I'm gonna show you real quick, guys. So I got this area right here where I'm planting this loquat. And as you can see, I have an ash tree right there. That tree is gonna give it some natural shade, especially during the middle of the summer when the tree is fully grown. Overhead shade, it's always beneficial to your plants. But for right now, I'm still gonna have to build a structure around it, and I'm gonna show you how I do that. But that's about it, guys. So just pick an area where your tree will get some sun, and then you're gonna have to count on actually protecting your plant too, just to be safe. So let me go ahead and get to planting right now, and then I'll show you the process, guys. So this is the bigger tree than what most people would plant. So this is gonna be a little special case. The first thing you're gonna need is you're gonna need to dig a hole, guys. How big of a hole you need? Well, that depends on how big your tree is and your drainage. If you have good drainage, which in my book is 24 hours or less, then you're gonna go ahead and dig a hole just big enough, maybe a little bigger and a little deeper than your tree is, and then you're gonna plant it in there. So I already checked drainage in this hole. If you want to learn more about checking drainage, just check my video that I have on how to check for drainage, and then I will explain in details exactly how to check for drainage in the area that you want to plant your tree in. The way I do, just a quick a summary: dig your hole, fill the hole all the way up with the water, and then time it and see how long it takes for that water to drain. You're looking for 24 hours or less. If it takes several days, then you're gonna have to fix that before you plant your tree in the ground. Another thing to keep in mind when planting a loquat tree in the ground is always keep in mind its root system. Thankfully, loquat trees have a vigorous, shallow, fibrous root system. So you can plant them closer to structures without having any issues, because the roots are not that invasive to the point where they're gonna uplift anything. Yes, the canopy may grow into whatever structure you have nearby, but at least you won't have any problems with the root system. Obviously, if you have a sewage pipe right below the tree, those fine roots are gonna find their way inside your sewage pipe. So make sure that you don't have any sewage pipes running close by, because that may become a problem once the tree is like 10 years old plus. Anyway, so I got my hole right here, guys, and then this hole is a little bigger than the root ball. It's a little deeper as well. And now I'm gonna go ahead and get my tree in the ground. So the easiest way to measure this is, what I like to do, I get a shovel, just like this one right here, and then I just measure the root ball, especially when bigger trees like this. I'm not gonna be able to pick up and put in the hole and then pull it back out. So I just, you know, roughly measure and see where the actual top of the root ball is, which is right here. And then I bring that over here in the hole, and then I guesstimate and see and see how far down the root ball is gonna be. So you can tell it's gonna be just a tiny bit lower than the actual level of the soil. So maybe I'm gonna backfill it just a little bit because I don't want it too low here. And then I'm gonna plant the tree. So let me go ahead and backfill it real quick. Anytime that you add dirt in your hole, you always want to make sure to compact it down. The reason for that is because if you don't, as you water over time, this area is gonna settle down, and then your actual tree is gonna, you know, collapse down, bringing the crown of the tree below the soil level. Usually I don't want the crown of my tree below the soil level here because, you know, dirt starts piling up on top of it, and then you don't want dirt right against the crown. The crown is where the trunk meets the root ball of your plant, and that's where a lot of the breeding roots of your plant are located. Usually if you bury it too deep in the ground, you won't have problems for many years, but eventually you will. So just to be safe, make sure you compact the soil before you put your tree in the hole. And I think this is just good enough in here. Now the next thing I'm gonna do, guys, since this is a bigger tree, I'm gonna have to cut the pot. I'm by myself today. I already took my pain pills, so I'm ready to go. So let me go ahead and show you how I plant a bigger tree. So the first thing you're gonna do, you're gonna drag the tree close to the hole as much as possible. So that way, it will make it a little easier for you to drag it into the hole, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Alright, so the way I like to do this, guys, is the first thing you need to do with bigger containers, especially if it's a plastic container, you're gonna get yourself a utility knife. Make sure you got a new blade in there, and then what you need to do is, as close to the ground as possible, you're gonna make a cut going all the way around the tree, just like this. Alright guys, so I got the bottom completely cut in a circle all the way around the tree. Now the next thing you're gonna do is you have to tilt, well, for a bigger tree, especially if you're by yourself, you're gonna have to tilt it sideways like this, and then you're gonna slide the let me lay this down gently. Let me show you. You just take the bottom off, just like this. And now, you can easily drag the tree into the hole and then cut the sides up. I'll show you. Alright, now, the next thing to keep in mind when planting anything in the ground is which side do you want facing east. Usually the bushier side, or the side that has the most branches, you always want them pointing east, because that's going to protect the main trunk from the sun, from the wind, and then that will actually, like I said, give the plant some protection until it actually roots itself in the ground and starts growing some branches out, and to protect its own self, because it'll know once it's in the ground which side it needs to grow branches on to shade itself. But just to help it along, pick the area that's bushier and then point that towards east. For me, it's gonna be this area right here. These branches, they're gonna be pointing east. East, it's that way over there in my property. So so yeah. Now the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna drag the tree that it's sitting in the area that we wanted, this is where you make your adjustments. And then once you know 100% where you want your tree to be for sure, then you're gonna go ahead and cut the size up. So this is the easiest part of actually planting. All you gotta do is get your knife, and then you go all the way down, and then you make a vertical cut just like this, all the way up. And then all you gotta do now is just slide the pot, the container completely out. And that's it, guys. So let me go ahead and fix that root ball real quick. I'm just gonna backfill that corner to make sure that the tree is standing straight. Well, actually, I don't even have to do anything. It was just a branch of my ash tree that was getting in the way, if you notice, up there. So I just moved it around, and now the tree is standing straight. All right, guys, let's go to the next step, and I'll show you what's next. All right, guys, the next step is going to be to backfill the hole. So how do you backfill it, and what soil amendments to use? Well, that depends on your soil, guys. If your soil doesn't have that much organic material in there, I always recommend to put in compost. What kind of compost to use? It doesn't really matter. This is what I use. This is what they make here locally. Most of the brands here locally come from the same pile, from the same wholesaler. So to be honest, they are all about the same. Usually the main difference in compost, what makes it expensive or cheap, is gonna be how much they sift it, or they, filter out the bigger chunks. The finer it is, the more expensive it will get. Also, another thing to keep in mind with compost, you can tell this is dry here. So as soon as I actually add water in there, if it's not fully decomposed, what's going to happen? It's going to start the decomposition process again. And then that's the main reason why you don't want to go ahead and backfill the whole thing with compost, because, more is better. No, it's not always better, guys. So what's going to happen is if you put too much compost in there and then you didn't check your compost and it's not fully decomposed, what's going to happen is as soon as you add water, it will start the decomposition process again. It's going to heat up. The byproduct of the composition is heat, and you don't want all that heat right next to your root ball. So that's the main reason why I don't use compost all the way around 100%. Another reason for that is because that compost right there will break down over time. So as it breaks down, your plant's gonna settle down, so you want to have some support in there. So that's the main reason why I use native soil as well. 50-50 ratio is a good ratio, guys. I don't recommend going higher than that, especially when planting in the ground. Now, if your soil, it's very rich, very dark, like this color right here, you don't need anything. So there's nothing else you need, guys. Drainage is key, that's it. You don't need anything else. Just backfill with your native soil if it's rich in organic material, and you are good to go. Everything else that you put in there is gonna be secondary. To be honest, over the years, guys, I haven't seen much of a difference between, putting all kinds of amendments in the soil and then just doing just enough. Your plants will survive. They will grow as fast as they need to grow. And then, to be honest, there's nothing you can do to make them grow faster. They're gonna grow as fast as their genetics tell them to grow. Now, if they have everything that's required for them to grow, then they will grow nicely. If they're lacking stuff, obviously growth is gonna slow down. But yeah, I mean, if you want to put mycorrhiza in there, guys, go ahead and do it. But you know what? There is mycorrhiza in here. As soon as I start adding water, give it about 30 days, and it's in there. Mycorrhiza, it's in all the organic material in the soil already. So that's why I don't use that anymore. But anyways, yeah, just compost and native soil, and you are good to go. Now, the way I plant my trees, guys, you have to understand that anything that dissolves in water, your plant will eat. So there's really no benefit in mixing this compost right here with your native soil. I know a lot of people do it. I don't, because I know how plants actually work, and I know how they actually eat. So what I do is the first layer, I put a few inches of compost all the way around. Just like that. So that's the first layer. Now, the second layer is gonna be your native soil. Make sure you break up the chunks in there. All right, now second layer, I'm gonna put my native soil. Just a few inches. You don't have to go all crazy. All right, so our first two layers are in there. The next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go all the way around and you're gonna compact it down. You can get your fist and stick it in there and compact it down as much as possible. If you're able to, you can also stand in there and then just step on all the way around just to compact the soil as much as you can, because if you don't, over time, as you water, there are gonna be a lot of air gaps in there. Those air gaps are gonna collapse from the weight on top, and then everything on top is gonna settle down. So I don't like that to happen. So what I like to do, I like to compact my soil in layers, just like this. So that assures me that my soil is not going to settle down. All right, guys, so I think the next layer is gonna be the last one. And then I'm just gonna backfill it with the native soil all the way level with the root ball. I don't wanna put dirt on top of the root ball. I wanna keep it level with the root ball, because I'll explain it to you in a minute. But let me finish this up. All right, guys, as you can see, I'm done. Now let's talk about the soil level. You can tell I left the surface of the root ball exposed. Now what you can do is you can put mulch in there. Mulch, it's gonna be leaves, it's gonna be straw, any carbon-based material that breaks down over time is gonna be mulch. So what I'm gonna do now, all this leftover dirt that I have around, I'm just gonna spread it out and make like a basin all the way around the tree, like a very big one. And this is for future watering. This is not for right now. But yeah, so what I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna make that basin that I talked about, and then I'm gonna put mulch in there, and then we're gonna talk about watering. But yeah, so mulch on the surface. You don't want dirt on the surface, because what usually happens is this root ball right here, it's going to dry out very quickly, just the same way it did yesterday and the day before. And just because it's in the ground, it doesn't mean it's gonna go a long time without water. But when you put dirt on top of the root ball, a little bit, it's okay, but what happens is it makes it really hard for you to check if the root ball is moist, if it's wet, or if it's dry, because this soil on the surface, the root system will not be able to drink that water because it has no roots in there. So it's gonna remain wet after you water the first time, but the root ball underneath it, what's gonna happen is it's gonna dry out, and it's gonna give you the false impression that your plant is wet, and then you won't want to water. And what's gonna happen is all it takes is one afternoon of going dry here in the summer for your plant to die. So that's the main reason why I don't like to put dirt on the surface of any root ball that I plant in the ground. So that way I can easily check if it needs water or not. The second reason is I don't want to bury the root flare, which is right here, the crown. You see all those little roots right there? A lot of those roots are there to actually breathe in oxygen. So when you put dirt in there, like this, right next to the trunk, I mean, a little bit it's not gonna harm it, but if you bury it several inches, that's gonna be a problem over time, over the years, not overnight. So what's gonna happen is you're technically choking the plant. dirt, when wet, has no oxygen in there. Water displaces the oxygen away from the dirt, so your plant won't be able to breathe. Now, mulch has a lot of air gaps in between, so you can put mulch on top of it because the air can still get through, and then you can easily move it around and check the root ball for dryness. But actual soil, that's why I don't like to put it on top of the root ball. Now let me finish making the basing around the tree as best as I can with the dirt that I have remaining, and then we'll talk about how to actually grow your plant. Alright guys, so my tree is in the ground, so the next thing we're gonna talk about is how to keep this plant alive, how to grow a loquat successfully. Now remember at the beginning of the video I told you it needs shade, right? It only needs shade for about the first summer, maybe 2 summers. Every plant's a little different, even within the same variety, so don't stress about it. If in doubt, just shade it a little longer. Remember, your loquat tree will actually require sun to grow, so do not plant it in an area that's going to be fully shaded. Is your tree going to grow in the shade? Yes, it will. Is it going to fruit as much? Probably not. Is it going to grow as well? Probably not. It's probably going to grow a lot slower than if you actually get some sun. And I'll show you some examples of my loquat trees that are in the ground later on in a different video, because this one's just probably it's going to be very long. I'm trying to keep it short. But anyways, remember, if you live in an area where you have humidity in the air, your temperatures linger around, 80 to maybe 100 degrees in the summer, no higher than that, and then you got clouds in the sky, you probably won't have this problem, guys. Now, if you live in Arizona where the temperatures get over 100 degrees every single day, you need to fully shade your loquat. I'm talking about shade all the way around. I know right now it doesn't look shaded, but this tree right here, it's an ash tree and it's about to wake up and it's gonna shade this entire area. But this is not enough shade still, even with that tree back there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build a shade structure all the way around this tree and try to cover the top as well, so that way I know for sure my tree is not going to die from the sun exposure, especially when it gets extremely hot. Your plant cannot handle it. Not all plants are the same, so if somebody has a loquat that grew in full sun, remember, seedlings are going to be always stronger than a grafted tree, and every tree is different. But if you want to guarantee that your loquat doesn't die, shade it for the first summer, but it needs sun eventually. Now let's talk about the winter protection, guys. Loquats can take the cold temperatures. I've seen loquats take like lower teens, like 11-12 degrees, no problem at all. They can take frost, they can take everything. Very easy to grow in the wintertime, so no winter protection here in Arizona and in most places of the US. Now obviously if your ground like freezes and then your temperatures drop into the lower single digits, even in the negatives, that may be a little too cold for your loquat. But yeah, no winter protection, guys. But remember, if you get really cold in the wintertime, especially in the lower 20s or in the teens, your fruit is going to freeze and the flowers are going to wilt and they're going to drop, so it's going to be hard for you to get fruit. Now let's talk about flowering. Loquats usually flower in the fall to early winter, and then the fruit ripens through the winter time, and then it's usually ready in the spring, depending on the temperatures. Here in Arizona that usually happens in April. But you know what, if you get warmer, colder, that will dictate how soon your fruit will ripen. Everywhere is going to be different. Just keep in mind, they flower in the fall, and sometime in the spring you're going to get fruit. Now remember, if you have a seedling, it's going to take a few more years for that seedling to flower. If you have a grafted tree, it will flower the same year. But you have to understand, even this big loquat right here is not strong enough to hold its fruit like a fully rooted tree in the ground will. So for the first few years, I can't tell you how many because every tree is different, a lot of your flowers, they may not get pollinated. Even if they do, a lot of your fruits may fall off. So I always recommend for the first 1 to 2 years, don't expect anything out of your tree. If you lose all your fruits, it's normal. If you get some fruit, that's amazing. But if you don't panic. Don't over fertilize your tree. It's normal. Don't worry about it. Just give your tree time to grow roots into the soil, and then you'll be fine. Loquats are slow growing plants, and you've seen the root system of this plant right here. They're very small, so it takes them a very long time to actually root out completely. It's gonna take a few years. So remember, it all depends on the area you live in. Give it a few years to fully root itself in the ground. Once it's fully rooted in the ground, it will actually be able to tolerate the sun. and then you will get a lot more fruit, but every year is different. And we'll talk about, you know, plants and flowers and fruits in another video so you can better understand what I'm talking about. So anyways, let's talk about watering. Loquat trees, they have a shallow root system, and then because of that you will need to water it frequently, a lot more often than another plant. Deep watering will not benefit your loquat tree as well as another plant that has a taproot system or a deep root system. So just, you know, water, let the soil dry a few inches, and then water it again. But for the first summer or two after you put your loquat in the ground, make sure you keep it on the wetter side, because it's better to be safe than sorry, guys. It's extremely hard to overwater loquat. I have never been able to do it. And overwatering issues take months to kill your plant. It doesn't happen overnight. So 1 hour in the sun, this tree goes dry, it's done, guys. Now, which one would you rather do? You know, overwater, that takes months to kill your plant, or not water and lose your loquat in 1 hour during the summertime. And how big does your loquat get? Now that depends on the variety, guys. This is the Christmas loquat right here. And then the biggest one I've seen ever, it was about, I think maybe close to, I would say 12 to 15 feet tall. So Christmas loquats are on the shorter side, but they get wider. So this tree right here, eventually we call this entire area. And then you can prune them down too if you want, but naturally they get that nice round canopy on them. So minimal pruning, you know, it's all it needs. But yeah, it all depends on the variety of loquat that you have. Some loquats are bigger than others, so yeah. Let's see what else. We covered the sun, the winter protection, how to water your loquat, flowering and fruiting, and I think that's all you need to know, guys. Remember, the main thing you're gonna need is to water your loquat and give it shade. How much shade you need to give your loquat? All the way around. I'm talking about 100%. The darker the better. Full darkness for the first summer or two. I guarantee you your loquat's still going to grow, and then it will be fine, guys. You're just trying to baby it for at least the first year to 2 years, especially if you live in Arizona or any other area with extreme temperatures during the summer. And then that is how you grow a loquat tree, guys. So if you never had a loquat, it's amazing fruit. It's one of the easiest plants to grow here, except for the first summer or two. It takes a little work from you. And then I always, you know, get a lot of people that say they got a black thumb. To be honest, it doesn't matter what color your thumb is. As long as you treat your plants as living beings, just like you and I, or you treat your plants like you do your kids or your pets, you will be successful. And that's what I did, guys. I treat plants like I do my pets, my family, and then that's the day I became successful at growing anything that I want. Because if it's hot outside, you know your plant's suffering. So go out and check and see if it needs water. Most of the plants that people kill is usually the first summer, because most plants take at least 1 year to grow roots in the soil. Until then, it doesn't matter if it's a big loquat like this. This one has been in that container, I would say, about 7 years. And then even then, if I don't water it, guys, in the summer, one afternoon it goes dry, I just lost it. So just because you buy a bigger tree and you put it in the ground, it's not gonna be stronger until it actually roots itself into the ground. Time starts when you put it in the ground, guys, not when it was in the container. But yeah, so I think this video is getting a little too long, so I'm gonna break it up and I'm gonna make another one how to actually build a shade structure for your loquats. So keep an eye out for that one. And then yeah, if you have any questions, comment below. And then we're also on Instagram. If you want to join our Instagram channel, we're a lot more active there. And yeah, subscribe if you like my videos, and don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I'll see you next time.